went over with my dad to Ireland to visit my family, and each day of this holiday we would go and visit my granny for a couple of hours. And so after arriving, and she'd chat away with me in English for a little bit, we'd catch up, and then Dad and my granny and old aunties and some neighbours would sit down around the fire and chat away in Irish for like an hour and a half or 2 hours. And there was only so many games of Snake that I could play on my dad's Nokia because I had no idea what they were saying and I was just wee. And so I'd spend time fighting boredom, looking around my granny's walls, all the different things that were hanging there. And I came across this image of Jesus that I thought was really strange. In this image, his heart was on the outside of his chest, like his heart was on the outside of his body. And there was a lamp attached to this picture. And so when I was 8, I thought all Irish households must have different pictures and they must all have lamps on them so you can see them when the big light is off. Quickly, I realised that wasn't the case after going round the other families' houses. Their photos didn't have lamps. This photo had a lamp because this was a special photo. This was the image of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And for so long, the image of the Sacred Heart of Jesus was just some ornament that was on my late granny's wall. But now it's so much more. And so in this month of June, we celebrate the Solemnity, the big feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And when I look at that image now, I see the great love that God has for you and for I. That he became like us, he took on a human heart, human form. He had a human heart that beated 100,000 times a day just like us. The fact that he became like us meant that he was entering into life as we do, that he would share in the joys that delight our hearts and in the sorrows that break them. We also see in the image of the Sacred Heart that Jesus' heart was wounded. That takes us back to after he dies on the cross when he was pierced with a lance, and out from his heart flowed blood and water. That blood and water represents baptism and the Eucharist, the sacraments in which we receive his life, when we receive divine life. And so out of the wounded heart of Jesus, our hearts are healed. That's how greatly he loves us. And we know that love demands a response, right? If we think about some of our favourite movies, usually one of the characters is madly in love with one of the other characters, and they eventually work up the courage to be that vulnerable and tell them. And so they might say something like, "I love you." And then you almost wait nervously for the other person's response because there's got to be a response. And in the worst scenes, the other person comes out with something like, "That's nice," or "Thank you." But in the best scenes, they respond, "I love you too." And so in this image, we see Jesus' heart laid bare for us. We see Jesus say to us, "I love you." And he thirsts for our response. He desires for us to respond with our whole hearts. So one way you can offer your heart to the Lord is by joining us in praying the Sacred Heart Novena over the next 9 days. If you head over to Instagram and check that out, all the prayers will be up there each day. But I just really invite you to respond to the Lord with your whole heart so that we can our hearts can be healed, our hearts can be transformed, and we can learn to love as Jesus loves and become the people that we have been created to be. O most Sacred Heart of Jesus, I place all my trust in you.